Step into a time machine and journey back to a Nigeria many have only heard about, but few have truly seen. This is not just about black and white photographs or fading newspaper clippings. This is a journey into a world where Lagos still breathed with quiet streets, where Kano's walls stood unbroken by the rush of modernity, and where rivers carried ferries instead of bridges. These images don't just show you places. They whisper stories of a nation still shaping its identity. Stories of pride, struggle, resilience, and transformation. In the next few minutes, you will see Nigeria as it once was, from the gates of the University of Ibadan, standing tall in 1960, to the Independence Building rising over Lagos Harbor in 1974. You will walk the streets of Carter Bridge in the 1950s, meet the fearless Fulani women of the North, and witness the courage of an Igbo soldier during the dark days of the Civil War. Every photograph holds more than just a scene. It holds a heartbeat, a history, and a piece of who we were. And as we reach the final image, you'll understand not only how far Nigeria has come, but also how much of its past still lives in its present. Watch until the end, because the last picture, the Aso Rock Lodge of 1991, will tie this journey together in a way you'll never forget. 1. Main Gate, University of Ibadan, 1960. The University of Ibadan's main gate in 1960 stood as a proud symbol of intellectual ambition in a newly independent nation. Back then, the air here wasn't filled with the endless buzz of vehicles or the modern rush of students clutching smartphones. Instead, it was the sound of footsteps on gravel paths, the smell of freshly cut grass, and the sense of optimism among young Nigerians eager to shape the future. The gate, an architectural masterpiece for its time, welcomed scholars not just from Nigeria, but from across Africa. Ibadan was the beating heart of higher learning, producing leaders, thinkers, and revolutionaries. The 1960 image captures not just the gate, but the promise of a generation when education was more than a certificate, it was a calling. 2. Independence Building in Lagos Harbor, 1974. In 1974, Lagos Harbor bustled with activity, but not with the chaotic congestion we know today. The Independence Building stood as a proud marker of Nigeria's sovereignty, its architecture reflecting both colonial influence and the new nation's aspirations. Ships from across the world docked here, carrying goods, culture, and ideas. The waters glistened under the West African sun, and the skyline was modest yet full of potential. This was a Lagos still in transition, where the dreams of a young country met the currents of global trade. The photograph freezes a moment when the harbor was a gateway to possibility, not just commerce. 3. Fulani Women, 1960s, 1970s. Strong, graceful, and dignified, the Fulani women of the 1960s and 1970s carried with them centuries of tradition. Their braided hairstyles, intricate jewelry, and flowing garments told stories of lineage, beauty, and resilience. They moved through their communities with a quiet power, balancing calabashes on their heads while carrying the weight of family, culture, and survival. The photograph captures not just their appearance, but their essence, a portrait of women who have been the backbone of nomadic life in northern Nigeria for generations. In their eyes, you see the reflection of a people whose identity has endured despite time's relentless march. 4. General view of historic Kano City, 1950s. Kano in the 1950s was a city of walls, gates, and bustling markets. The air smelled of leather, spices, and freshly woven cloth. Merchants called out their wares in the ancient Kormi market, while camel caravans made their way through sandy streets. From above, the city's architecture was a blend of Islamic artistry and Hausa ingenuity. Mud walls, ornate doorways, and winding alleys. This was a Kano still deeply rooted in its centuries-old role as a hub of trade and culture in West Africa. The photograph gives you a glimpse of a city before the asphalt roads and glass towers, when history and daily life were inseparable. 5. A view from Okotie Park, Lagos. Okotie Park in its earlier days was a slice of quiet elegance in the heart of Lagos. The lush greenery stretched lazily under the tropical sun, and you could hear the gentle rustle of palm fronds swaying with the ocean breeze. Couples strolled hand in hand, children chased each other across open lawns, and expatriates lounged under shade trees, sipping chilled drinks. This was a Lagos where time seemed to slow, where life wasn't always about deadlines and traffic jams. The view from the park framed the lagoon in the distance, a reminder of the city's natural beauty before the skyline became a forest of concrete. 6. Emir's Palace, Kano, 1960. In 1960, the Emir's Palace was more than just a royal residence. It was the epicenter of tradition, authority, and cultural pride in northern Nigeria. Its intricate mud brick architecture, decorated with Hausa motifs, stood as a masterpiece of indigenous craftsmanship. The palace walls whispered of ancient dynasties, diplomacy, and ceremonies that had been performed for centuries. The Emir himself was a figure of reverence, bridging the world of the past with the rapidly changing reality of post-independence Nigeria. Visiting the palace wasn't just about seeing a building, it was about stepping into a living chapter of history. 7. Eboh soldier during the Nigerian Civil War, November 1968. The photograph of the Eboh soldier in November 1968 is raw and unflinching. His face, hardened by months on the front lines, carries the weight of a war that split the nation in two. The Biafran conflict was not just a political struggle. It was a human tragedy that tested the resilience of millions. Behind the soldier's determined gaze lay stories of families torn apart, of hunger, and of survival against impossible odds. This single image speaks louder than any textbook, reminding us that history is written not only in treaties and speeches, but in the courage of those who stood and fought, often with nothing but hope in their hearts. 8. Asaba Onitsha Ferry Crossing, 1959. Before the Onitsha Bridge connected the eastern and western banks of the Niger River, ferries were the lifeline between Asaba and Onitsha. In 1959, the crossing was a scene of quiet but constant activity. Wooden ferries groaned under the weight of passengers, bicycles, and baskets of goods bound for market. The river shimmered under the afternoon sun, and boatmen steered with practiced ease, reading the currents as if they were turning the pages of a book. It was a slow journey, but also a human one, a moment where traders, travelers, and strangers all shared the same boat and the same horizon. 9. Nigeria Airways Fokker 28 at Calabar Airport, 1970s. In the 1970s, flying with Nigeria Airways was an event to remember. The Fokker 28, with its sleek design and distinctive green and white livery, represented a Nigeria that was stepping confidently into the modern age. Calabar Airport, far less crowded than today's bustling terminals, offered passengers an almost personal send-off. Ground staff moved with precision, and children pressed their faces against chain-link fences to catch a glimpse of the aircraft. For many Nigerians at the time, air travel was a rare luxury, one that carried with it not just passengers, but dreams of progress and connection. 10. Carter Bridge Street Scene, Lagos Island, 1950s. The Carter Bridge area in the 1950s was alive with the energy of a growing Lagos. Market women called out prices over the hum of chatter, taxis and bicycles jostled for space, and the smell of roasted plantains and fried fish drifted through the air. The bridge itself, one of Lagos's earliest connections between the mainland and the island, was more than just steel and concrete. It was a symbol of movement and opportunity. Looking at the photograph today, it a window into a city that still had room to breathe yet was already pulsing with the heartbeat of a future megacity. 11. Mary Slessor's House in Calabar, built in 1880. Mary Slessor's house, standing in Calabar since 1880, is more than just a piece of colonial architecture. It's a monument to a woman who defied the norms of her time. A Scottish missionary who lived among the Efik people, learned their language, and fought against harmful cultural practices. The wooden house, with its wide veranda and raised stilts, has weathered more than a century of storms, both natural and historical. Walking into it is like stepping into another era, one where courage and compassion could change the course of lives. 12. Chief Festus Sam Okotie-Eboh, 1919 to 1966. Charismatic, wealthy, and flamboyant, Chief Festus Sam Okotie-Eboh was one of the most colorful politicians in Nigeria's early history. As the nation's finance minister, he was known not only for his economic acumen, but also for his flowing gowns and larger-than-life presence. To some, he was a visionary. To others, a controversial figure whose career reflected the turbulence of Nigeria's First Republic. The photograph captures him in his prime, confident, commanding, and unapologetically himself. His life, cut short during the first military coup in 1966, remains a reminder of the high stakes and human costs of politics in a young democracy. 13. The Aso Rock Lodge, 1991. By 1991, Nigeria's political center had shifted to Abuja, and the Aso Rock Lodge stood at the foot of its namesake monolith as a symbol of a new era. Built under the Ibrahim Babangida administration, it was designed to host visiting dignitaries and serve as a quiet retreat for the nation's leaders. The lodge's modern architecture contrasted sharply with the rugged beauty of Aso Rock itself, a silent, ancient witness to centuries of history. The image captures a moment when Nigeria was reimagining itself for the 21st century, with Abuja as its polished new capital.